And we are back with another exciting episode of Rick's Horror Movie Review Show. Rick's Rated R Horror Movie Review Show, where we review all things related to horror. Horror movies, horror TV shows, horror documentaries, horror video games. The 2020 special on The Devil Made Me Do It with Barbara Walters and Hugh Downs. We reviewed that stuff here too because we absolutely love that shit. But around here, there's a very, very special type of horror that we really, really enjoy. And that's horror that has to deal with the Catholic Church and demonic possessions, zombies, occult shit like witches and a witch's coven. Or maybe it's just the ghost of a deceased person that haunts your home for no particular reason, simply because it wants to fuck with you. That's the kind of shit that we love around here, because we love horror. Don't we, Billy? Yeah, we love all kinds of horror, but we definitely have our favorites. I know that you don't like slashers, and, a lot of people like slashers. That's okay, Billy. We don't all have to like the same type of horror. That's the great thing about horror. There's something for everybody. Am I right? Yeah. Yeah, that's absolutely right. There's horror for everybody. Anyway, welcome. Welcome to our show. And thanks for joining us. This one's for you. If you're a returning listener, welcome back. We really appreciate you being here. As usual, we got a very not special episode today. Oh, no, that's new. Yeah, well, I wouldn't say it's necessarily new per se, but today we are reviewing a film by the name of Krampus. Ah, that's right, Krampus. Are you familiar with Krampus, Billy? I am familiar with the film. I am familiar with the lore. Yes, I am familiar with the topic at hand. Yes, sir. Okay, well, here's one to you. Ah, well, thank you. Absolutely, no problem. And this one, unfortunately, promises to be a short episode. Oh, wow, why is that? Well, it takes a lot of inspiration to, do dramatization of scenes, script-accurate dramatizations of scenes, and sometimes a film just doesn't inspire me. And that's quite all right. They don't all have to. But today, as I mentioned, we are reviewing the film Krampus. If you're new around here, by the way, my producers are on my headset telling me to tell you to be our friend. Be our friend on the old socials at Instagram, or the Instantgram, like the kids like to say, and the TikToks, or the TikToks, like most old people say, the Facebook, and the YouTube. All of those things, and the interwebs. Be our friends. We want to be friends with you. Tell us how we're doing. We want to hear from you. Tell us about a movie that you really enjoyed, or maybe you didn't enjoy this review, but be nice about it. Just be nice. Hey, yo, Rick, you know what? You just ain't my cup of tea. All right, that's all right. I like Earl Grey. And what can I say? You're more chamomile, and I'm more of an Earl Grey guy. You know what I mean? That's all right. You can be your chamomile, maybe add a little bit of honey, but I myself, I'm more of a, of an Earl Grey kind of guy. All right? It's not a big deal. It just so happens. That's okay. But let's all be civil about it. Okay, so the movie at hand. Krampus. Oh, what can be said? Okay, so if you're new around here, you're not familiar with the format, so I'll tell you exactly what it is. It's a simple format. First and foremost, I'm going to talk about what kind of film this is. And then I'll tell you the things I liked about its film. I kind of like that music. Maybe you should use it for this segment. Okay, for the show format segment? Yeah. Welcome to Rick's Horror Movie Review Show, and this is our show format. I'm going to tell you what kind of film this is. What kind of horror film is this? Then I'll talk about the things I liked. Not in general, I like many things. I'm talking about specifically the things I liked about this film. Then I'll talk about the things I didn't like. Because sometimes there's things I don't like, and that's alright. Give it up for the things I don't like. A lot. Do they really need that? Why not? Is this film scary?
Is it scary, mister? Is this film scary?
Then we'll move on to talk about whether or not this film is entertaining. That I find this movie was the picture entertaining. Did you like this movie? I'll tell you all about it. Then we'll move on to a segment called Do I Recommend This Movie to You? And I mean, that's self-explanatory. I'll tell you whether or not I recommend this movie to you or not. I'll get into a tad bit of context, and I'll give you a rating. In most instances, depending on the rating, well, not necessarily depending on the rating, in most instances, I'll tell you, we'll talk about the plot, we'll do a little commentary, some script-accurate dramatizations of scenes, and then we'll do a rating again. But because I said this was going to be a short one, a special one, we will not be doing script-accurate dramatizations of scenes. I'm sorry! Some films just don't lend themselves to that kind of stuff, in my personal opinion. All right, so let's get into this. What kind of horror film is this, Billy? This is a blend between Christmas horror and comedy. So 3 genres, really. Oh, Christmas and horror and genre and comedy. Yeah, it's you know, I think maybe not necessarily in any particular order, but I mean, that's definitely a Christmas story, and it has horror elements, and it's presented in a comedic fashion at times. Very well put, man. Thank you very much for that, Bill. Oh, yeah, that's why I'm here. Okay. So, the things I liked, as usual, is sponsored by no one. Oh, Lord. Yeah, you should really get some sponsor. Okay, yeah, sure. I'll get one next time. Oh, okay, good. Okay, so the things I liked about Krampus. Remember, this is Krampus. And by the way, I didn't mention this, but this entire thing, because I want you to make up your own opinion about this, this entire thing will be spoiler free. I'm not going to spoil anything. I may allude to some things, especially in the context area, but I am not going to go into the movie. We will not be doing a spoiler full review of commentary and script accurate dramatization of scenes. That will not be happening here. And the reason for that, as I mentioned, is just because, you know, it just didn't strike the right notes for me. And I'm foreboding now, right? Okay, but let's get into the things I liked. Okay, so Oni, it's a character. She is a character in the film, and she happens to be the main characters, or one of the main characters' mothers, and she didn't speak a lick of English. Which I found very relatable. Oni is the main character's mother, and, you know, she's obviously a grandmother to somebody. And it was a fun thing to see that in the film. She's German, and she's interacting with a grandson who doesn't necessarily speak German, but also understands her as she speaks German. The son understands and speaks German. And it's just the story of America, isn't it? Having that one relative who doesn't speak English. I can relate to that. My grandmother didn't speak a lick of English. Congratulations, Grandma. This one's for you. I thought that was very relatable. I loved that. I really loved it. Okay, so Oni. Then another thing I really enjoyed was the CGI. I thought this film had really good CGI. I mean, it's definitely a larger budget film, right, Billy? Yeah, I think this was a Legendary Pictures production, so you could expect to see a larger budget when Legendary is involved. Okay, thank you for that. So great CGI. Most of the time, like I always say, it's like, I don't like when CGI is overdone. I love Star Wars. I love the Star Wars. But, that CGI can just be overwhelming. It just feels too fake. And I can't get lost in the story when I'm just distracted by the CGI. Ladies and gentlemen, here to talk about CGI is the Grandmaster himself, Yoda. Yoda, welcome to our show. This is the first time you've been here.
First time I've been on your show, it's not. First time you introduced, it is.
Oh, apologies for that, Yoda. What do you think about the CGI in this film, considering you yourself have been presented at times in CGI?
Good point. CGI can be distracting. It can. But in this film, I find CGI was very well done. A master in CGI is the person who did this film.
Well, okay. Thank you very much, Yoda. I appreciate your contribution to our show. And you're welcome back anytime.
Thank you. I give you a return. I must.
Thank you. Wow. Oh my goodness. How did you land such a prestigious guest? This little show of ours has wide reach, galactic even. Oh, well, Matt, this one's for you then. Well, thank you. Okay, so also great practical effects. You know what? Too bad Yoda's gone because, there's also a lot of practical effect Yodas.
Here I am still.
Oh, he's still here. Ladies and gentlemen, Yoda back again.
Important practical effects are to a good film, good storytelling, dependent on it.
That's right. Well, okay. Well, thank you very much, Yoda.
Welcome.
So great practical effects. What I mean by that is like the puppets. A lot of horror films, a lot of sci-fi films, they are dependent on, practical effects. Also action movies as well. There's certain directors that enjoy in front of the camera, filming stuff that actually happens as opposed to having it done in post-production by a team of animators, right? Somebody like Christopher Nolan, who, by the way, I think also works with Legendary Pictures a lot as well. So somebody like him, he likes practical effects in front of the camera. So he likes to film stuff. I think sometimes to a fault, but hey, it has a different style. And so one really good, or one of these trend-setting practical effects houses or production companies that comes to mind is, of course, Industrial Light and Magic. They are the ones that were responsible originally for those great practical effects in the Terminator movies, amongst a plethora of sci-fi horror films that have existed in the history of existence. Right, Billy? Yeah, I mean, if you really want to talk about the Terminator, by the way, that you should really review the Terminator. That's a great horror film. You're right. That is definitely a horror film. People maybe misremember that, but that's definitely horror sci-fi. You know what? I'm going to put that on the list. Thanks, Billy. Thanks for the recommendation. That's why I'm here, man. I'm here to do a lot of things, and one of them is to present and challenge ideas. Okay, well, yeah, I wasn't aware of that. This one's for you. Oh, well, thank you. So you were on the topic of great practical effects. Yes, great practical effects. Some of the puppets, I like to call them puppets, but some of the creatures that are presented in this film were practical effects. And they were really well done. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they were actually CGI, but then that's more credit to the CGI I just mentioned. It's great CGI. I think there was a combination between practical and CGI. And it's so good that me, a layman, can't tell the difference. And that's good. So congratulations to, the practical and animators that worked on this film. I think it was really, really well done. Okay. Another thing I really enjoyed was a grand entrance for the star of this film, Krampus. They sort of teased him a bit. They teased him, and then suddenly he has a grand entrance. And I really liked that. He was just sort of, that main event, the last character to show up, and you're expecting it to happen, but you don't know when it's coming, and suddenly it's teased a little bit in a good way, and then he's there. Really well done. So a grand entrance for Krampus, the star of the show, and the star of this movie. It's Krampus. And you think he's gonna show up, and they tease his entrance, but then he doesn't, and you're fucked. Oh, Lord. So they do a really good job at having him have a grandiose entrance, in my opinion. You know, I'm probably overselling that a little too much wrestling, but you gotta sell. Yeah, so aside from a tremendous entrance by Krampus, I thought the film was overall very well acted by everybody. Of course, I know David Kushner right off the top of my head, and I know Adam Scott, great actors in their own right, both of them capable of being comedic. And I mean, just multiversity actors. It's amongst others. I think the entire cast was really well prepared for the film, and I thought it was really well done. So great acting. What I'm saying here is the acting wasn't distracting. You get to a movie sometimes and you're watching it, and it's just horrific acting, and they're just mailing it in. And it's like, hey, listen, we all have off days. But hey, come on, give it your best. Like Tony Horn used to say. A shout out to Tony Horn. You're talking about that fitness stuff? Yeah. What do you used to say in those P90X videos? Do your best and forget the best. That's not how it goes. I think it was do your best and forget the rest. That's right. Do your best and forget the rest. That's exactly what he used to say in those P90X videos. What great advice for P90X and in movie making. Do your best and forget the rest. So I thought everybody did their best here, and it really shows. So really well done. Okay, next thing I really liked was great Christmas music, but of course, right at the beginning, it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas everywhere you go. I mean, and that song in any movie, right, just lightens up the mood. So I really love that. I liked that it had that song amongst other Christmas classics. So that was really interesting and enjoyable. Of course, it is a Christmas movie after all. What I also enjoyed that this film had elements of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. If you haven't seen Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, go check that film out. Main character is visited by... Well, I'll talk about that a little bit later. Okay, that's it for the things I like. Congratulations. Next segment, I present to you the things I didn't like. Okay, so I mentioned earlier that Krampus had a grandiose entrance, and they teased him, and he just shows up at a particular point of the film. And again, I'm not going to tell you when or along what lines. And well, spoiler free. This is a spoiler free review. Damn it! I thought he was massively underused, Billy. Well, considering the film is called Krampus, I mean, you'd think that you'd get a little more Krampus. Am I right? Am I right? Oh, Billy Lee. Yeah, am I right now, huh? Well, that's a funny thing to say. Am I right? Okay. All right, hold your horses. So as I mentioned, the grand entrance that he had earlier in the film, or rather not earlier in the film, the grand entrance I mentioned earlier in the review was spoiled. It was just wasted. It was wasted. Why? The film is called Krampus. Use him a little bit more. Another thing I didn't like about the Krampus character himself is he's mute. He doesn't speak. I was expecting, a really creepy, demonic voice. Something along the lines of, "Welcome to Christmas, bitches. I'm Krampus, and you're fucked." Or something along those lines, but we got zero Krampus. Zero Krampus, and I don't know why. He was, and as I mentioned, the practical effects. For the most part, I thought he looked really well or rather, he looked really good. But because he didn't speak, I felt like the animation on his face was, insufficient. It just, I don't know. I didn't like it. What do you want me to say? He was underused. He didn't speak. I didn't like that. And the grand entrance was wasted. Okay. Next thing I didn't like. All right, so I understand, Billy. Go ahead. I understand that this is a blending of a horror / Christmas / comedy film. Okay, you understand, but you're going to say something that, you say you don't understand now, right? That's right. So I understand this is a horror, and I understand this is a Christmas film, and I understand this is a comedy. But the comedy, I'm sorry, the comedy was just too funny. What do you mean? What I mean by that is like it's a fine walk it's a fine line to walk. And you're undertaking a massive effort right now to try to blend these three genres, right? And kudos for trying. A for effort. And hey, you might find this funny, right? That's why I always say, go watch it yourself. I heard things about this film. Go watch it yourself. I felt like the comedy was too funny. Like it took away from the horror too much. There's a fine line to walk between horror and comedy. I think comedy should be used as a moment of levity, right? To take away from the gruesomeness that horror films exhibit in my opinion. I think it should be horror first, comedy second. This movie, I felt, didn't really, you know what? Let me also say, strike a balance, horror, comedy, or comedy with elements of horror. I feel like you have to stick to either one of those. In this film, I felt like, okay, some of these moments were, could have been a little more horror-like, but weren't. And then some of these moments just went really far off the deep end of comedy. Like I felt like I was watching, maybe just a regular old Christmas comedy with sci-fi elements, which is really funny. They were funny. I'm not saying they weren't funny. I'm saying they were too funny. The fine line and that balance was unfortunately not kept, in my opinion. Again, without spoiling anything, there are scenes here where there's tense moments, and I felt like the comedy was unnecessary. There was no need to relieve any tense moments, not just yet. And so the comedic interjections in the scenes that we got were just, in my opinion, too funny and too often used. I love comedy, I really do, but I just felt like it just took away from the horror a little too much. A little too much, for my opinion. And again, this is just me. Horror and, what you find horror, what you find scary, and what you find funny and subjective as well, it's all going to depend on you. But for my personal taste, I just felt like, that tight balance of, interweaving that, those two difficult things. I'm not saying it's not difficult, but horror and comedy, I just felt like this movie just didn't do a good job at it. Okay. Next thing. Is this film scary?
Is this film scary, mister? Can I watch this by myself?
Considering this is a PG-13 film, and, this is a rated R horror movie review show. Considering this is a PG-13 film, I just felt like it's just not scary to me. It could have been. Some of the practical effects in this movie were like straight out of like a real deep horror film, Billy. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Those with the right lighting and under the right circumstances and with the right story, those things could have definitely been really creepy. I think they were creepy, actually. Oh, okay. I mean, I thought they were kind of creepy, but maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's just the lighting or something. I thought those characters would be creepy under any light, but the fact that, again, they tied so much comedy into this movie that, especially in those scenes that I'm talking about right now, it was so comedic that really drew, in my opinion, away from how horrific these things actually looked. In all honesty, it was really good. And in the end, it just turns out that it wasn't scary. It just wasn't. I'm sorry. But again, we've said this before, Billy. Yeah, a scary movie, or rather a horror film, doesn't necessarily need to be scary to be good. I agree. There are plenty of horror films that are not necessarily scary, in my opinion, that are just tremendous. And by the way, I've mentioned this before, I am not subject to the old jump scare. I'm just too desensitized to life. Ah, Lord. So no, not scary. Good Lord, how many times do we have to say this? All right, moving on. Is this film entertaining? Would I watch this film again? It's very rare that I like to rewatch films, to be honest. In general, I just don't like it. I like the story. I like the original story. I want to get lost in it. I want to appreciate it, and I want to move on to a new one. That's how I experience film and stories in general. Some sequels, okay, but for the most part, by the way, this is a different conversation. I'm not a huge fan of sequels. Oh my goodness. I just felt like the story is just washed and rinsed and then repeated to you. And, I'm not a fan. But anyway, is this film entertaining? I'm going to say some scenes are. Overall, I would say no. In my opinion, there are scenes that are worthy of repetitive watch on the old YouTubes, if you really want, some funny clips. But overall, I would not, if somebody said, hey, Rick, have you seen Krampus? We're going to watch Krampus tonight and drink some eggnog, man. You want to come over, bro? I would say pass. Are you sure it's Krampus, bro? It's like, come on. It's like a central figure in Eastern European folklore, bro. Don't you want to watch it? It's Krampus, bro. Pass. Sorry. Okay, and without further ado, after all this stuff, a rating. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of things I liked about this movie. I mentioned them. I listed them for you. But I just think that combination between horror, and by the way, this is also a Christmas film. Let's not forget. There are, and I actually mentioned the elements of the Charles Dickens story stuff as well. But this is first and foremost a tale of appreciation, as we tend to think about these kind of things during the Christmas holidays, and be thankful for all the stuff that we, for being alive, which is all great. That's all fine and dandy. So that's all the thankful for your family, thankful for another year. Congratulations. It definitely captures those things, and it's presented to you in sort of Charles Dickens-y kind of way, where it's like, hey, without ruining anything, someone visits you, a ghost visits you. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Charles Dickens, go check that out. The Ghost of Christmas Past visits you. You don't appreciate what you have until it's taken away from you. Those elements are captured, and I think they're captured well. So the Christmas aspect of this film. And again, without giving it, there's some scenes in there that again really capture this very well at the beginning of the movie. I think the Christmas stuff was really well done. Congratulations. I think the horror stuff, on the other hand, I was waiting for it, and you teased it, and it was getting good, and then you threw some comedy in there that I'm like, whoa. And so I just felt like the comedy really superseded and overshadowed too much of the horror, and did not allow the horror aspect of this film to really shine. Had a lot of potential. It really did, because of the creatures and as I mentioned, the CGI and the practical effect. So unfortunately, I have to give this film a 4. Oh I thought you said maybe a little higher. Yeah, I really do want to give it a higher rating. I thought that again, it's a tough thing to tackle 3 genres in one film, and again, Christmas was done well, but the other two, not too well. Too much funny. Hey, it's too funny. What can I say? It's too funny. Hey, you're a funny guy now. Do I look like a funny guy to you? And that's it. Okay, now again, we already mentioned. We won't get into all the other stuff, but a little bit of context if you don't know who Krampus is, in case you're interested in what. And by the way, you should watch this film and make up your own opinion about it. Would I recommend this film? I honestly recommend you watch it. How's that? I don't recommend the, in the sense it's like, oh my God, I love this movie, bro. You should check this film. Check this movie out. Oh, it's so good. Not like that. I recommend you watch it and make up your own opinion on it. Maybe you feel like it strikes the perfect balance between all three genres, and I definitely commend them for trying, but it wasn't for me. So you're not familiar with Krampus, and if you intend on watching, here's a little context. He is, as I mentioned just a little bit earlier, a Central and Eastern European folklore figure. And he's particularly celebrated in the Alpine regions like Austria, Bavaria, Croatia, Czech Republic, Hungary, and of course, Northern Italy. Ah, in Italia, ciao, come stai? Sono italiano, parla italiano? Ah, no parlo italiano, sì, io parlo inglese. Sì, siete... Krampus is a figure in how do you say south? South? Oh, sì, molto grazie. He is a figure in South Tyrol and the province of Trentino. Okay, thank you, appreciate that. Slovakia and Slovenia. So according to traditional belief, Krampus is a half goat, which is captured, half demon creature, which was also captured, and he shows up during the Christmas season and punishes children who have misbehaved. Now, he's a direct the antithesis of Saint Nicholas, who we know as Santa Claus, who rewards well-behaved children with gifts. You probably already knew that, and maybe you already watched this film. If you haven't seen it, I recommend you watch it and make up your own opinion on it. A 4 is not the worst rating I've ever given a film. I felt like it had a lot of potential, but unfortunately, it just didn't do it for me. And that's going to be it for this episode of Rick's Horror Movie Review Show, Christmas edition. And we appreciate you stopping by, and we'll catch you again on the next episode of Rick's Rated R Horror Movie Review Show. Billy, any last words? I'm gonna go check out this film. Oh, I just saw it. Any opinions? Let them decide for themselves. Okay. Have a great night, everybody. But you said day earlier. Have a great day, everybody.